Well, hi everyone. We are back with another episode of our Azure on Air podcast. My name is Lex, and again, I will be your host for today's session. During today's episode, we are going to have a look about cost optimization and also developer cost awareness. And we have invited a specialist in that area. Dit is Michiel van Uitheusden. He's an Azure cost optimization specialist, and he works for a company called Expert. And so I want to welcome Michiel to the session.
Thank you, Lex. Thank you.
So there you are. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, can you introduce yourself maybe a little bit before we move on to the main topic?
Yeah, sure. My name is Michiel van Oudhuis. I work for Xebax, Xperit, this is the Microsoft solution side. For the last 7 years, doing a lot of consultancy work with big organizations, moving to the cloud, helping optimize the processes, managing their workflow, application lifecycle management, but also helping with tools like Azure DevOps, GitHub, see how they can land on Azure. So all kinds of things that goes from the development side to the management side. Yeah, making sure they use the cloud in the most efficient way. That's what I'm doing for the last 7 years.
Yeah. Totally makes sense. Yeah. And how did it happen that you got interested in cost optimization?
Yeah, I think that started almost a year and a half ago, when more and more companies are actually saying, well, we are now in the cloud, which is great. And we did sometimes a little bit of a lift and shift. So we took what we have, just brought it to the cloud, just to basically make the data center obsolete because it was spinning up a lot of energy and a lot of cost. So we want to get rid of it. And now we're in the cloud, which is nice. But somehow it costs money, and it is not that strange because the cloud is expensive. You should not go to the cloud because it's cheap. You go for other reasons to the cloud. But they're basically finding out, are we doing a good job at going to the cloud? Is it still a viable business solution? Do we still want that? And are we, and that's mostly the question we're getting, are we running cost effective in the cloud? And I think that's a question which is pretty hard. So also something we need to find out how we can answer those kind of questions. And you can have a look at what you spent in the cloud, but the question, are you cost effective, is another kind of question.
It's another one.
Because I don't know, if you spent $1 million in the cloud, but you earn 2 million on it, that might be very cost effective. But if you are spending a lot of money and you're basically losing money on your product, that's not that cost effective.
No.
So there's a lot of metrics involved to actually get a feeling, are you running cost effectively?
Yeah.
And there are a couple of elements there that we found out that can help organizations be more cost effective. So with almost all the customers we got there, the answer is almost always no, you're not running cost effective. There's always something to do. Sometimes it's very small, sometimes very big, sometimes something they are already aware of that they need to fix.
Yeah.
So that's how we started, and actually helping more and more customers now answering those kind of questions.
Yeah, it totally makes sense, right? Of course, the shift moving to the cloud, this is a very natural thing indeed nowadays. And just like I said, you don't do it for being cheap. But that cost awareness just need to be created. Organizations, it's also a process that needs to get started, right? For getting that cost awareness indeed, and just this very topic of the webinar, that is also really where it starts, right? With making your developers, make them more cost aware and take it through the entire chain. Then
I think we can see with I think smaller companies a couple of years ago, when they wanted to go to the cloud, they didn't have a lot of knowledge yet. They actually said, here's a credit card, start using it, see what you can get out of it. Now that is a recipe for disaster, because a lot of stuff we spinned up. You have no ownership over it anymore. Nobody is responsible for something, and you end up with a used cloud bill. Larger organizations do the other way around. They don't want credit cards. They want invoices. They want control, and they have a very complex bureaucratic process on the other end that does not allow you to go fast, which is good for your for control, but not good for innovation and for acceleration and going faster to your customers. So there is you need to be somewhere in between. So I'm not saying you need to get subscriptions everywhere and credit cards for everybody, because that won't help you. But you want to have the flexibility with the developer to do things in the cloud in the most efficient way, because there's the knowledge. On the other hand, you want control over that. So you have not overspending and the correct spending of stuff in the cloud.
Yeah.
So it's a very fine balance there. So that's why I think, the developers need to be really hooked on to actually help out in that whole picture of getting and financial management over the cloud.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's also what you often see, right? That especially in live environments, that you'll see that at the end of the month there will be a bill, and that needs to be paid, by a financial controller. But that person doesn't have any clue about, if that is really, cost-effective use of all the cloud resources. So those financial people don't have the insights, and all the other sides, the technical people and the operational people, they are well aware about all the technologies that are being used, but they don't have all the details. They don't have access to all the financial details.
I think there's a big gap there. We see a lot indeed that financial departments get the cloud bill. They have no clue what they're actually paying, so they look into the organization who is the sponsor of that bill, who is actually responsible. Mostly that's a higher level management person somewhere that's head of IT or the CTO that has that control over the spend. He gets that bill. If it fits in his budget, there's no problem. But still, then you're spending a lot of money, which is uncontrolled. And if it's not within his budget, what we see that's happening, emails being sent to the whole organization. This is spent. We need to get it down. And every month again, you get again the same email. We need to do something with this spend because it's high. And that is not helpful because people don't know what to do with it. They don't know if they can turn off something. And it might, the first couple of weeks, they might do something and might act on something, think, hey, I still have that machine running somewhere. But that is not a process. That is very loose. That is very, So I think there is a very good role for the financial department, just as well as there's a very good role for the developers. And I think if you look at the financial part, they have and I'm relating it back to the whole FinOps model. That's a centralized part where they need to be aware that the cloud billing structure is it's pretty complicated. There's a lot of things you can do with the rate. The cloud bill is actually built up of usage times the rate. So what you use times a certain rate, that makes you cloud bill. That's what you spend. And there is something that they can do. That's the rate. They can play with the rate. That is either by setting up saving plans, reserved instances. They can have discounts with Microsoft, enterprise agreements. There's all kinds of things you can do. And if you look at larger organizations, they don't pay the normal pay-as-you-go pricing. Certainly not. They have big agreements with Microsoft or with any other cloud platform to actually use discounts. If you have a small organization, you have a lot of other ways to get the same kind of discounts. Hybrid benefits, the dev test environments. But if you're not using those, you're missing out. So that's the rate part they can play with. The other one, the usage, that's a decentralized function. And that lies with the developers, that lies with the teams. They know what they are running into the cloud. They should know what the feature is that they're using. They don't really care about the rate. They have no control over the rate. That is very hard to maintain, very hard to control. But what they can do is play with the usage. And if they change that usage, like a different kind of SKU, a different kind of option set, a different kind of Azure resource, they can bring that usage down. And in the end, lower the bill. But they need to be sensitized. They need to know that that has impact. And I think, again, what you say, a monthly bill, that doesn't help you. Then you see what you did a month ago. Even if you see the correct bill, if you see all the information, if it has the correct cost allocation.
With all the details about,
With all the details, And actually your details, because if you send it to 200, 300 developers, they all think, I have no clue what this is. I know this is not my resources. So you need to make sure that you can do cost allocation. That this is for this specific team. And that is what I see with a lot of tooling and even in Azure, that is very complicated to do. It's very hard to do the right tagging, subscriptions, etc. You need to have that in place.
Yeah.
So if you can do a real cost allocation. You can actually go to the teams and do a little bit of show back to actually say, this is what you're spending in the cloud.
Yeah.
And does that make sense? I think that does it make sense is a hard question, because it boils down to unit economics. So is this really per user or per product that you sell or per view that you get? Is it the right place or the right price? Or do you think, hey, this might be cheaper if I choose a different option? I think that is really a developer's perspective that they need to fix and need to look into.
Yeah. No, this is right, and there's also just like you said. I mean, if there's an Azure bill and the CFO just says, okay, the team look at it and solve it because it's too high. It's just like dropping it over the wall without, any expectations. It's nothing clear, right? But need, also the CFO that once the bill comes in, you want to charge back the different teams, right? So you want to have the overview per solution, per department, per branch office, that kind of stuff. And then those people will also be more interested, or at least feel more forced to have a better look at it, and because it has already their scope.
If it is, talk about chargeback and showback. I think showback is the first thing. Show what the cost is, and in the end, if you can do chargeback, then it would be really nice if you're certainly in a large organization where you have different business lines, where you have different units, you can actually see not only that this is the amount of spend you have, but also actually get the bill, because you are developing something, you are selling it to somebody else, so you need to pay for the resource that you're using. And sometimes it looks cheap because you're not paying anything, but you do have your cost. Cost of the people that are working on the products, your marketing, all the other things, but also your hosting cost. So you should not forget about that. And I think that's not only developer perspective, that's also the product owner, the business side, it's your whole value stream that needs to be aware. Hey, there is hosting cost. How much is that? And is that still okay to have this amount of hosting cost? And as a business, if you want 4 or 5 nines of availability, you need to pay for it. It's not cheap.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's up to developers to say, if you want that, fine. But this is the outcome. This is the effect that you're going to get. This is the bill you're going to get in the end. And it is for the business to make the decision. So it really helps also to make those decisions, not accept that you need that kind of, for example, uptime or feature set.
Correct. Correct.
And money is a nice driver in those conversations.
Always.
It really helps to set the tone in meetings. Okay, this is how it's going to cost you, and do you want to accept that charge? And again, it's hard. Chargeback and showback, certainly when you have shared resources. We've seen a lot of organizations. There is, I think, looking at Azure, you have, for example, jump stations. You have certain networking. You have certain firewalls that you might share. You have hybrid connectivity. You have most likely an API management instance, which is an expensive one. So you probably also only have one. Maybe you have one per business unit, but at least you shouldn't have one per team. So these are the things that are shared. How do you manage those costs?
Calculate.
How do you handle shared costs? It's a pretty complicated thing. We had an organization where they started to use all kinds of shared offerings to all the development teams. And in the end, it looked like it was very cheap for a team to do software development. Which makes sense because they were offloading all those things like hosting, logging, monitoring. We're hosting it all to the shared services, and they never got a bill. Otherwise, they get the subscription bill. But here it was all going to a very large and still going larger and larger subscription bill of the shared team. So they get in the end the penalty in that sense. So there you really need to have that chargeback and that showback. So to the other people.
No, indeed. Again, this cost awareness needs just to start there, and still, ideally, of course, you start with your developers, but it has to be the management who enforces that such a process about cost awareness must be there, right?
So enforcing, but also driving it. It's about the whole organization needs to go to some sort of FinOps model, and there are all kinds of all kinds of maturity levels in there. But in the end, you need to be aware that the whole cloud behaves different than your on-premise data center. So
That's
you
for
need to make
sure.
different choices. You need to be more on top of it. You need to be, it needs to drive your business. You should have control over it. And one way is doing FinOps. FinOps help you in having that alignment within your organization, that collaboration between the different teams. And again, you need to have your finance team in FinOps. You have your technical people in FinOps,
Cool.
but also help your developers get that process in place.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think there, we see more and more that what we in the last couple of years see with DevOps, that we see practices that developers are responsible for something that runs in production. We see that we also need to do that with FinOps.
Yeah.
And what you see with DevOps is a very shift left approach where we think we need to move more and more things to the developers. And the earlier you do it in the pipelines, the earlier you have control over it, the less impact it has on production. So if you already fix things in your development pipeline, instead of doing it in production, probably your cost is also lower. So I think that's also something you see with FinOps nowadays happening.
Yeah.
So that's not about rate optimization, and leave that centralized because that is going over longer terms. That is 1-3 year terms that you need to handle. But all the other things like user optimization, that is short cycles. You need to quickly react on it.
Yeah.
So you need to have insights, see what you're going to do, and if you already see that on production, you're actually already spending it.
Right.
It is. They say often it is you pay for what you use, but it is you pay for what you provision.
True. Yeah.
So if you already provision virtual machines, they're running. If you
they're
already
running.
provision
Yeah,
SQL
you're gonna pay for
database,
it.
even if you're not spending anything on it, you're already spending
Yeah.
money on it.
Yeah.
So the earlier you're aware that something you're gonna roll out has a cost impact, the better you are prepared of not doing it. I think that's the whole shift left. I think that we also see nowadays happening with FinOps.
Yeah. And is there any kind of tooling that can support that process? So also just to prevent those end of the month surprises that those Azure bills are much higher than estimated. What
So indeed. So I think there are a couple of tools which are which you normally handle within the whole FinOps domain. So there's normally a centralized place where you manage those kind of tools, which makes sure that you extract all your cloud data, your cloud bill data, combine it with all kinds of analytical data like usage, and present that to your end users. That kind of tooling will certainly help. I think Serverless 360 is a great example of that. You have all your information in one centralized plane, and you see per business unit, per team, you need to have some sort of categorization there, what you're spending. And not only what you're spending now, but also what you're gonna spend.
Yeah,
You need to have a little bit of forecasting. And that forecasting is very hard because it's not simple to look at the day before, because you might have spikes at the end of the month because you need to process a lot of data. You might have a Black Friday coming up or whatever. It's pretty abnormal patterns, but they are patterns. So you need to accommodate for them. And with all that information, you can, as a team, make decisions. Hey, my spend is going up more and more and more. So you need something to analyze the data and have an overview of that. So that is something that, again, you already spent it. So that is a drawback. So you also need something that's before that process. And I think there are tools like, the most obvious one is the Azure Price Calculator, which is a very exhaustive tool. There's a lot of options there, but it is very useful because you can play really with all the options. If you have a storage account, if you have a default storage account, it's a hot tier. It's LRS hot, it's expensive. I think what you now can do with the Azure pricing calculator is actually play with it and see if I select another option, what will happen with my cost. And I think we have an example once that if you put a petabyte of data in there, let's take a huge number, you spend around 20K a month by default. But if you play with the options, you can bring it down to 1,000. So that's really a large optimization. of course, you will lose features. Don't forget, rate, you won't lose features. But if you make changes to your usage, you will lose features like availability. You might have different access times. You
Accessibility.
might have less features. So that's the drawback. But if you can live with that, that might be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's,
Yeah.
and I
So
think
really
that's
based on
constantly the
solution.
decision you need to make. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here it's also very important to notice development versus production, or actually production versus non-production.
Correct.
And what we notice with a lot of development teams, they build a pipeline, which we really like. We want pipelines, we want infrastructure as code, we want repetitive elements in there. But on the other hand, we see they roll out exactly the same things to all the environments, the same feature sets.
Yeah.
So you get replication going over multiple data centers, which is nice, but you don't need that for development.
No.
You might need it for production only. So those kind of things help you to make decisions that are different on production environments.
Yeah.
So use that pricing calculator to get some sort of sense.
Yeah.
So that's one way. And the other way we're seeing more and more is tools like infra cost. So you normally have your infrastructure described in the form of, let's take Terraform. You might be aware of it, that you can completely describe your whole landscape. But it also includes all the features you want to have there. So what if you can already, before you actually roll it out, analyze what the cost impact will be? And you know you're going to roll out a VM, you know you're going to roll out a database, you have a firewall, whatever.
Yeah.
So you can already look up the price information and see that it is costing you this amount of money before you actually roll it out.
Yeah,
I think those tools really help, and I think tools like InfoCost are more they nicely integrated within your development workflow. They raise a pull request, or you do a pull request, and they add a report to it to say, hey, well, are you aware that adding this VM and you up it to an whatever, a B5 or a D something, your cost goes up triple or 5 times? Are you aware of that? And I think most people are not aware. They just think, I want more features, I want more speed.
Yeah,
I will just bump up the number there. Yeah, and that's fine. If you need to do it. But if you're not sure, you will see a huge increase in your cost.
Yeah.
I think that it shouldn't block you, but it should help you in getting.
Yeah, but at the same time, luckily, also with the Azure portal, there are all kinds of advices that you can take, right? I mean, of course, the Azure advisor is itself, but you also have the right sizing, for example, that also gives metrics about maybe you have needed scaled out your machine, scaled out or scaled up your machines too much more than really required, so then you can bring it down again. And reverse side.
Those are really helpful, or turn off certain things if you don't need it in the night. You might want to scale down the skew at night, or you want to stop it maybe at night. But again, those are things that are already running on production. So what we need to do is be aware before it actually reaches production. The other environments, I don't believe in all the whole OTAP or like GTAP, developer test acceptance production. You're not going to use the other environments. They are not representative enough of production.
True.
Production is where it's the real value. That is where you have all the load, all the users. So that is why you need to be aware of what you're going to push there.
Yeah.
So all the other tools are great, but they're all reactive. And you want to be proactive.
True.
And that requires knowledge from the developers. So it is training, it is workshops, it's all kinds of things to help them be more up to speed about what you're going to use in the cloud, how to make it more efficient.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it is also tooling around it to make sure that you are helped with that whole process, and actually know that when you roll out something, that you have the tools backing you up and helping you say, hey, I actually really want to use those machines here. Are they that useful?
Yeah, true. Indeed. That's what I said, right? I mean, you already introduced it yourself as well. Well, from our stack, we have a Service 360 that also has a cost optimization, cost analyzer module, and there as well that can help in the showback to start with. So you can bundle all your resources from a solution, from multiple different tenant subscriptions, resource groups, and so on. So at least you make the cost for a specific solution or branch office or whatever, you make it more visible. And then you have the monitoring capability. So on a daily basis, you can see if there are any spikes, actually up or down, right? I mean, if costs all of a sudden are going way down, maybe something else is going wrong.
Yeah, it's also an
So
indicator. If you see things that you expect to have a constant and it drops,
yeah,
hey, that's also strange. Why is it
true,
not being used anymore? Is something broken? Is something not working? And if you
exactly.
see a lot of logging going up, that's also a very nice indicator that maybe your application is
Maybe
changing.
somewhere.
Yeah, that's a huge impact on
Yeah,
your
so
loggings.
true. Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
true.
need tools to actually aggregate that information. I think Azure is doing a good job in a lot of things, but that whole taxonomy of your organization is something they leave to you. Yes, you have management groups, you have subscriptions, you have resource groups. There is tagging, although tagging is also a little bit fake. It's you can
Yeah,
enforce it with policies, but
yeah,
yeah, it has case sensitivity and values. It's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
areas
yeah,
of improvement,
yeah,
but you want to have that aggregated. You want to have those overviews. You want to play with it yourself as a team to
yeah,
see, hey, what is
yeah,
actually my resources doing. And
yeah,
seriously, we come into organizations where we have machines running that have in their name prod. So we assume it's a production server. It's running for maybe years, and nobody has an
that's
idea who
true.
owns it. Yeah, and
That's
then you
not
see a
true.
little bit of traffic going to it, so it probably is being used somewhere, but it is spending money. And is
Yeah,
it useful
yeah,
money? Is it effective money? We
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
So you need to have that ownership over your resources. I think that's a start almost, and then give that almost near real-time visibility of your cost.
yeah,
You spin up a machine and you cannot see within a couple of hours what the effect is. I cannot extrapolate it with the forecasting. Yeah, then you're running blind.
yeah,
It's
true.
like driving a car, pressing the pedal, and hope to go somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Yeah, it might be the gas, but it might also be the brake, right?
Yeah. So you need to be careful about it. It's and of course it's always 4 hours behind there. So the Azure Cost APIs are a little bit slow, which is okay. It doesn't need to be real time. But yeah, it is important to know what prices are doing and how your resources are reacting to
Yeah,
them.
that's for sure. Yeah,
And a good example is regional prices. We see now that certain regions in the world are more expensive than others.
the other ones.
So
Yeah,
why would you host everything in a certain region? Now, mostly it's because it's closer to you. Hey, you have the latency, or you have the geographical thing that it's for the rights and the compliance. That's an important one. But on the other hand, you want to make sure that you, for some environments, you take the cheapest one. So some regions are more efficient there. I think
yeah,
that also is part of tooling to help you out. What is the most efficient region to run your development environment in, or your spot instances, or etc.
true, true,
There's a
true.
lot you can do as a developer to help you out there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And you can still, yeah, take the pain of latency because, yeah, the latency
Yeah, and for development environment,
it's
it's
relative,
fine.
right? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
also relative. I mean, we're talking about seconds or milliseconds, so
yeah. So that's one thing, and I think the other one that is becoming more and more interested, and that's what we also see with customers that are hesitant to move or are having trouble getting their developers up to speed, because developers don't really care too much, which is a shame because writing more efficient code, yeah, that is also an art, to make the right to
exactly.
use the right resources,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
right settings.
It should make
On
some
the other
sense.
hand, yeah, it's not their money. It's they don't see the impact, which is annoying. Okay, we can show that to them, but they say, yeah, okay, then we shave off a couple of dollars every month, or we
Yeah,
get it down a little bit at some point. But what really helps is also to see the impact certain things have on the environment, like the CO emissions you have. And that goes a little bit hand in hand. The green ops, the more environmental friendly side of the whole cloud computing, goes hand in hand with the whole FinOps side. So that
yeah,
sometimes help developers to show, hey, if you do this right, you also have a better impact on the environment.
yeah, yeah,
And of course,
yeah.
it's all very small, but if you all do it, that helps.
It does help.
That
Yeah, yeah,
helps
yeah,
on a global scale.
yeah, yeah,
Because the data centers, yeah, they are a big hurdle on the environment. But if you
yeah.
use data centers in Sweden, yeah, they have greener energy. And if you go to France, yeah, there is nuclear energy. It's also, I'm not saying cheaper, but
Yeah.
in a different way better than the coal industry.
True. Yeah. True. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. It's just a process, right? I mean, we are human beings. It's a process. Well, of course,
Yeah.
developers want to develop great solutions. And well, so well, they are certainly able now with all those Azure cloud technologies. So well, this is just one of the next steps that they need to take, right? And it's a process, it's a mindset. It will happen
We're
over time.
expecting a lot of developers. So that's something we are more and more also aware of. We want them to be full stack, T-shaped. Want them to be agile, work in Scrum teams. We want them to be cloud architects, do things on the cloud. And now we also want them to do the DevOps thing plus FinOps thing, which is, we're adding more and more to it. So it's a complicated ask, I think, for a lot of people. And so we shouldn't push it too much, but we should show there is a lot of opportunity, a lot of tooling to help them actually get there. And it starts with visibility. It starts with insights, with allocation, have some sort of sense about the numbers and see, okay, this is what I'm really spending in the cloud. Does it make sense? And I think a lot of people say, hey, that's strange. Why do I spend that much on a database? There's not that much data in there. I spent hundreds of euros on a database. Why? And maybe they think, I need to switch to a different plan, and then it might be a lot cheaper.
Exactly.
They can easily accommodate it.
Yeah.
So I think these kind of discussions help, and you won't get it from a central organization. They won't know. That's the email sending out to the whole organization. Help me because the cost needs to go down. No, that won't work. There's no ownership of it. You need to bring that ownership down to the individual teams, and they need to have some sort of champions that actually want to run with this and are more aware of it.
Yeah. I think that's this is a good place to end with the podcast. Indeed, it is about the awareness and the cost ownership. That's vital. If we can just say to all developers, try to be aware of the costs, try to be aware of the resource types that you're using, and that make your solutions not just cool but also cost effective.
And mostly also more effective because you use better tooling, the right tooling, and that has an effect into the cost. And you have a better discussion with your business. I think that also really helps. They want everything for cheap. Now that's something that is not that possible.
Yeah. No, but I mean, money that you don't spend on resources that are not necessarily required, you can use for innovation.
Yeah, so I think that's a nice bridge between FinOps, DevOps. If you do FinOps nicely on the cloud, you basically save money that you can do on innovation on DevOps.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it can accelerate each other. If you do DevOps right, you do FinOps right because you have better control over your financial capabilities. So there is a nice bridge there as well.
Yeah. Okay. I think we need to wrap up here, Michiel. Great conversation. Let's hope that our audience, that we have a huge audience listening to it and also taking the benefits out of this session, because there's a lot of good stuff in it.
Covey.co